Sophia had already skipped lunch so her little boy could eat, but when an old man quietly asked if she had anything to spare, she handed him the only meal she had left. Less than 24 hours later, the same man walked into the headquarters of the delivery company where she worked, and her cruel boss suddenly forgot how to speak. Sophia had been delivering food across the city for almost 3 years. She never complained, even when the rain soaked her shoes or when elevators refused to work, and she had to climb 10 flights of stairs with heavy bags. Most customers never remembered her face. She understood that. People remembered the food, not the person carrying it. But lately, life had become harder than usual. Her husband had left almost 2 years earlier, leaving behind only unpaid bills and silence. Since then, every hour she worked had been for one reason. 8-year-old Liam. Everything she did came back to him. His school shoes. His asthma medicine. His favorite peanut butter sandwiches. Some nights she came home too tired to eat, but she always smiled before opening the apartment door. Liam believed his mother could fix anything. She tried very hard not to prove him wrong. Things became even worse after the company hired a new regional manager named Victor Grant. Victor believed fear created better workers. If someone arrived 2 minutes late, he cut their bonus. If a customer complained, even without proof, he deducted money from the driver's pay. He monitored every minute through the delivery app and called employees while they were driving. "You're slowing down," he often said. "You've been parked for 4 minutes. Do you expect the company to pay you for resting?" Nobody liked him. Nobody dared challenge him. Jobs were hard to find, especially for single parents. One cold Thursday afternoon, Sophia received her last delivery before ending her shift. The customer had canceled after the restaurant had already prepared the meal. Company policy allowed the driver to keep canceled orders. She smiled. For once, dinner was taken care of. It was still warm as she walked toward the bus stop. That was when she noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench. His gray coat was thin. His hands trembled. He wasn't begging. He simply watched people pass. When Sophia sat down to wait for the bus, he glanced at the paper bag. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said quietly. "Would you happen to know if there's a shelter nearby serving dinner?" She looked at the meal, then at him. "When did you last eat?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yesterday morning." She didn't answer right away. Her stomach tightened. She thought about Liam. There was bread at home. Some eggs. Enough to make something simple. Without saying another word, she placed the warm meal into his hands. His eyes widened. "I can't take this." "You can," she said. "I was going to eat it." "I know. But you'll need it more tonight." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he looked at her with genuine surprise. "People usually avoid looking at me." Sophia smiled. "My mother used to say that hungry people shouldn't have to explain themselves." The old man's eyes became watery. "I'll remember you." She laughed softly. "I'm just a delivery driver." "No," he replied. "You were something much harder to find." Her bus arrived. She waved goodbye and went home. That evening, Liam noticed she wasn't eating much. "Aren't you hungry?" "I had a late lunch." He accepted the answer. She hoped he never realized it wasn't true. The next morning started badly. Heavy traffic delayed several deliveries. Victor called 3 times before 10 o'clock. By noon he had already blamed Sophia for 2 customer complaints she hadn't caused. When she tried explaining, he interrupted. "Excuses don't deliver food. They also don't pay salaries. If you can't handle pressure, maybe someone else can." The words stayed with her all day. Near sunset she arrived at headquarters to return her insulated bag. Victor was waiting near the entrance. "In my office." Every nearby employee suddenly became very interested in their phones. Nobody wanted to watch. Victor threw printed reports onto his desk. Late deliveries. Low customer ratings. Missed targets. Sophia picked up the papers. Several reports belonged to other drivers. "These aren't mine. They're under your account now." She frowned. "That's impossible." Victor leaned back. "Maybe. But payroll believes paperwork. You've become expensive. I think it's time you resigned." She stared at him. "You want me to quit?" "I want motivated employees." "If you refuse." He smiled without warmth. I'll make sure next month gives you no shifts at all. Sophia felt her throat tighten. No shifts meant no rent, no medicine, no groceries. She left the office without another word. Outside, she sat on the curb behind the warehouse. For the first time in years, she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for exhaustion to finally escape. Someone nearby cleared his throat. She looked up. The elderly man from yesterday stood only a few feet away. This time he wore a clean navy suit. His gray hair was neatly combed. A black car waited beside the building. She blinked several times. I'm sorry, she said. I think I've mistaken you for someone else. You haven't. He smiled gently. I've simply changed clothes. She stood in complete confusion. What is this? Before he answered, another man hurried from the building. Mr. Harrison, everyone's waiting upstairs. Sophia looked from the employee back to the old man. Mr. Harrison. The name sounded familiar. Very familiar. Then she remembered. Arthur Harrison, founder of Harrison Express, the same delivery company where she worked. Years earlier he had stepped away from daily operations after health problems. Few employees had ever met him. Most only knew his name from company posters. Arthur noticed the realization on her face. I sometimes visit our branches without telling anyone. She could barely speak. You were testing people? He shook his head. I was testing myself. She frowned. I wanted to remember what loneliness felt like. His expression became distant. After my wife passed away, I spent too much time surrounded by people who agreed with everything I said. I stopped knowing who people really were. So yesterday, I left the car. I walked. Saturday. And I learned more in one afternoon than in several years of board meetings. He looked at her kindly. You gave away your own dinner. You didn't know my name. You expected nothing. Sophia lowered her eyes. It wasn't a big thing. It was to me. Then Arthur noticed her red eyes. What happened? She hesitated. It's work. I'll figure it out. Arthur gently replied. Tell me anyway. She finally did. Everything. The false reports. The threats. The missing shifts. Victor. Arthur listened without interrupting. When she finished, he simply nodded. Come upstairs with me. I can't. You're not on the schedule. He smiled. Neither am I. The executive conference room fell completely silent when Arthur entered. Victor stood so quickly his chair nearly tipped over. Mr. Harrison. We weren't expecting. I know. Arthur walked to the head of the table. Sophia remained near the door. Victor glanced at her with confusion. Arthur placed several printed reports onto the table. I reviewed employee complaints. Victor forced a smile. We've been improving performance. Arthur slid another folder across the table. Interesting. Because internal audits say bonuses disappeared. Delivery records were altered. Complaints were reassigned. And resignations doubled under your management. Nobody spoke. Arthur turned toward Sophia. Would you recognize these reports? She looked. They're the same ones he showed me. Victor quickly interrupted. She's misunderstanding. Arthur raised one hand. Silence returned immediately. I spent yesterday pretending to have nothing. Today I discovered some people actually have nothing. He looked directly at Victor. The difference is, they still kept their kindness. You kept your title. Victor's face lost its color. Arthur pressed a button on the conference phone. Security, please escort Mr. Grant from the building. Victor laughed nervously. There must be some mistake. Arthur calmly answered. No. The mistake was believing nobody would notice. Within minutes security arrived. Victor tried arguing. Nobody defended him. As the doors closed behind him, the room remained perfectly still. Arthur looked around the executives. If fear is the reason people obey this company, then we've already failed. Over the following weeks, changes spread quickly. Wrongfully deducted wages were returned. Anonymous complaint systems were introduced. Managers were evaluated by employee feedback instead of delivery speed alone. Sophia expected life to continue as before. Instead, Arthur invited her to lunch. Not in a luxury restaurant. In the same small diner where delivery drivers usually stopped. I have an offer, he said. She immediately shook her head. I don't want special treatment. I know. That's exactly why I'm asking. He wanted someone from the front lines to help redesign driver policies. Someone who actually understood the job. She hesitated. I've never worked in an office. I'm not looking for office experience. I'm looking for honesty. She accepted on one condition. I still want to spend time talking with drivers every week. Arthur smiled. Deal. Months later, Liam visited company headquarters for Family Day. He proudly looked around the building before whispering, Mom, are you the boss now? She laughed. No, I just help people do their jobs better. Arthur overheard the conversation. He knelt beside Liam. Your mother helped this whole company remember something important. Liam looked confused. What? Arthur smiled. That the people carrying the bags matter just as much as what's inside them. As everyone gathered for a group photo, Sophia noticed Arthur quietly holding a simple paper lunch bag. The same kind, she asked. He nodded. Just in case someone needs dinner before I do. She smiled, remembering a cold evening at a lonely bus stop, where one shared meal had quietly changed the lives of everyone who had forgotten what kindness looked like.